blink. Hey, king of the road. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beady butt. Sorry. 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Da da ba ba dee ba ba. Da 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 da. It's Wednesday. I'm a little haggard from the commute home. What do you know about picks of the week? Ba-na, ba-na, ba-na. My old studio was rather isolated. And these poor people that now share a wall with me have to hear this once a week. You know what? I'm very quiet otherwise. So that's okay. First pick of the week is actually two books. This is Barbaric 2 and 3. If you'll recall, a few weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago now, we had the first issue of the fourth printing on the stands. This is by Vault Comics, which is another very new and very small press. And it's, yeah, when you think about it, it's not like how the 80s always seems to me the biggest decade for independent. There's a ton of publishers because there was the big black and white boom. And that was all, I mean, comics are only increasing in popularity in general. Also, I cleaned the camera lens. You're welcome. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So Barbaric apparently was popular enough for the first issue to go to a fourth printing. That's not, you don't see that from, non-selling books. And so as soon as I read the first issue and I discussed it here, I went to the shop and I said, "Hey, can you get me whatever else? I think 2 and 3 are the only ones that are out." And he said, "For sure." And so I waited and waited and waited because this, I mean, it now that there are three distributors, it was bad enough just dealing with Diamond, but now there's three different distributors. So trying to order stuff is, like one thing I ordered last week came yesterday. Another thing, these barbarics I ordered weeks ago and they just came this week. But I'm excited to get back to these. I didn't finish what I was saying. Was waiting patiently for these to come in, and then a couple weeks ago, I didn't even know it had come in. I was just kind of looking around the shop, and they had already put the trade paperback out of these first three issues. Now, first of all, 3 issues to a trade is ridiculous. It's also hardcover. What? I don't think it was like. I think actually, yeah, I think the price point was such. I was like, that's more expensive than buying the back issues, which aren't even really back issues yet. They haven't been out that long. The only bummer thing is that clearly it's not a huge bummer. The covers. I like when covers are like uniform like this, like they have a theme going. That's why I don't usually get variants because I just kind of want to get, if a variant's pretty enough, I'll get it. But generally speaking, I don't. But the first print or the fourth print definitely has a different cover than this. So, oh well. uh, I got two AWA books here also. Excuse me. I'm gonna go get a glass of water. In fact. Coming up next, we have Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, number 8 of 8. This is, of course, the finale issue, as you might have gathered by the number sequencing there. Sorry if you saw me scratching my butt. It was really just my upper thigh, the back of my upper thigh. Unique New York. This has been a really fun series. Another Garth Ennis. Well, I don't know if it's a home run. I mean, at this point, Garth Ennis is still my favorite writer, and he will likely always remain so. I'm trying to, like, since The Boys ended, The Boys was like the last real big thing that he did too. I think I would. I mean, he still works. I was just about to say he's like, yeah, he's kind of retired, but he hasn't retired. He doesn't seem to crank out stuff like he used to. He hasn't worked for, or not much for Marvel or DC over the last few couple decades now, I guess. I'm getting into this is a lighthearted Ennis romp through time. It's a little raunchy and violent as Garth Ennis comics tend to be. But this is another one that I want making a pick of the week because I want to finish it. It's been really fun, and yeah, I hope he does more. It'd be great. And then finally, we got a new book from AWA it. This is called The Fourth Man. Uh, Other than the fact that Mike Deodato is drawing it, I don't know much about it. I do believe it is a crime book, which is usually up my alley. I don't know if you can tell, but this, wavy arms man, he's also covered in blood. And also, I do like that whenever this has kind of become a popular aesthetic for covers, especially. It looks like kind of, I don't know if you can see the kind of the creases where the poster would fold because it's designed like a movie poster. I like that sort of thing. Oh, it says it's a true crime comic, so I guess we'll find out what that means. It's written by Jeff McComsey, who I think I recognize the name, and I brought my phone so I could look up things, which actually I shouldn't do. I was thinking that. I don't remember when I was thinking it, but I was like, there's too many points where it's just thrill as an old man Googles something. What the hell am I even watching? It's bad enough that it's just me talking about funny books. And you gotta look up, you gotta watch. Never mind. You get what I'm saying. Last week's pick of the week was single solitary Swamp Thing Green Hell #1. This was great. I was close to the. Yeah, okay. So as I went on at length before, this does bring Alec Holland back as the Swamp Thing, and I don't want to give away the reveal at the end of the first issue, but now I have no choice. Humanity's on its last legs. Whatever apocalypse has happened has already happened, and the green, along with the red, and the rot, which is another concept that I believe Jeff Lemire introduced to the Swamp Thing mythos. The green is all the Earth's plant life, that's what the Swamp Thing is, the avatar of the green, the defender. And then the red is animal life, and then the rot is death, obviously. Like, rotting flesh. Of whether plant flesh or animal flesh. And so those three abstract concepts, spirits of the earth, agree that we're just like, let's just and wipe out the rest of humanity. We don't need them. We don't like them. Get rid of them. And I'm always going to be on board or something like that. So yeah, this is really good. I'm looking forward to the next two. I believe it's only 3 issues. And then I read some other stuff. Firstly, I read Project Superior. This was actually something that I got during 2021, and I was like, "Oh, here, I bought this today," and then I haven't. I only just now finished it. So, this was good. When I bought it, I don't remember noticing when I bought it that it was from 2005. I think I thought it was from 2021. It does feature a lot of my favorite cartoonists, a lot of your Jim Mahfoods, your Josh Cotters, your Dean Haspiels, etc., your Farrell Dalrymples, and it's really good. I was gonna go flip through it and go, this one was good, this one sucked, but there's way too many. Paul Pope has the story here. His is always fun. And then there's a lot of cartoonists whose work I did not recognize, but still rather enjoyed. If I have any criticism of this particular tome at all, and boy oh boy, is this going to make me sound like an old nerd. The whole this anthology is actually the second in something of a series. Let me see what the first one was. Project Hellstar was the first anthology put out by AdHouse, and I don't know what the theme of that was, but the theme of this one is superheroes. So all the strips and stories are about superheroes. Very few of them, if any of them at all, are like attempts at actually doing. They're either like kind of satire or, I don't know what else. What is the other? I'm still very frazzled. Well, some of it's just kind of art. Yeah, some of it's just kind of abstract. So that's what I guess it is. It's either it's satire or it's kind of surreal and weird. But they're all pretty weird, frankly. And I don't have any problem with it. And I pride myself on not being your typical comic book nerd. Because I am very stringent about continuity and very picky, and I will correct you if you make an incorrect reference. But at the same time, well, I might not actually, because what I've learned over the years is just to keep all that inside. That's not for anybody but me. I keep my comics, for example, in very strict alphabetical order, and I have a system for filing them, and it's all very OCD like. But that's just for me, and nobody else has to live with it. So I don't want to ever be that guy. And part of not being that guy is getting defensive about liking superhero comics, and that is something that I still feel very much. When I was a little boy, comic books, superhero comics were strictly for little boys of all ages, but mostly my age or, within the next 10. I was probably like, yeah, the tail end of adults reading comics. Um, and now that they're so mainstream, though, it's like, nobody blinks if you read superhero comics. I mean, I think when people find out the extent of how into it I am, they're like, "Oh, no, thank you." But yeah, it's not like a big deal. It's not anything special. Not that it was. um, but I still have that defensiveness. I feel, and I don't like it. But having said all that, these indie cartoonists get a little cute sometimes. Oh, you don't like superheroes? That's what I. There's some of them that are just kind of. There's some that are kind of mean spirited, and there's some that are just like, I don't know. I can just, and this is again me projecting or me being defensive, but some of these came off as like some art school student who doesn't even read superhero comics, laughing up their sleeve at it. And it's like, all right, fun is fun, and I got a sense of humor, but sometimes I'm like, you know what, dude? If you were to like, why don't you say this to my face? I get very defensive about that sort of thing. But it's also honestly such a drag. I recently, it's a long story. Well, not really, but I recently started reading a book called Slugfest, and it's a history of the rivalry between Marvel and DC. And I only got to the first two chapters, and frankly, it's nothing to write home about. And right, one of the reasons, like right off the bat, page two, I want to say, and not the, it was like in the prologue, so it was just lowercase Roman numeral two. This guy, he's talking about Marvel and DC, and then he goes, "Not that I read either of them these days. I prefer indie comics like Saga," and he named some other Walking Dead, non superheroes. And I was like, "Oh well, good for you." So what? What is that? How does that have any bearing on his like? It had no bearing. It had the opposite of it. If he was trying to really strengthen his position as a historian as far as Marvel and DC are concerned, to say that you don't read their current output, well, that seems like, why would I believe you when there's a historian in my own home? It's that sort of thing that I get off of this Project Superior. You're getting a little superior, is my point. Speaking of superheroes, I also read Timeless #1. Now, this is Marvel doesn't do this necessarily every year, but it is at least somewhat. It's kind of a once a year thing if they ever do it, but it's essentially a roadmap to what is going to be happening in the Marvel universe. This one I did kind of want to break down because I'm a big nerd. It's in a really good Kang story, and boy, who knew Kang? This is another thing I forgot. I was like, Kang got a miniseries, and now he's on the cover of this one. And I'm like, oh, there's suddenly a surge of interest in Kang the Conqueror. Oh, he was on that Loki show. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not complaining, but now it's like I haven't watched that yet, and apparently that's something of a reveal. Same thing happened with WandaVision. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm not going to just hold it up, class, but here's what, and I actually did Google this too, just so I would, be into it. I don't know. Dormammu's son, Doyle Dormammu, who's a student of the Strange Academy, is apparently going to fight Dormammu and win. Ben Riley, the clone Spider-Man, the Scarlet Spider, as he's been largely known. He's currently Spider-Man. Peter Parker's apparently in a coma. I don't read Spider books, but he moves to Los Angeles. There's a new Iron Fist, and this is the news where this is like kind of a news bite. But back when the Iron Fist TV show came out in 2017, people were throwing a fit because it was another one of these kung fu type shows where it's an Asian martial arts. You know, martial arts are Asian, but the hero is a white guy, and people were pissed off about it. So now they're making a new Iron Fist, and it will apparently be an Asian person, which I'm totally fine with. But also, Danny Rand is always going to be the Iron Fist, as far as I'm concerned. Danny Rand has not been the Iron Fist before, too. It's not like a if they stop it, or and then it's like I'm sure, like with Hawkeye or whatever, they did the same thing with Nick Fury. They shoehorned a black Nick Fury into the regular Marvel universe, and then delicately removed the original Nick Fury from the Marvel 616 universe for years. He's back now, but he's not really Nick Fury again. I don't mind if they want to make these changes to kind of reflect the times or reflect the more lucrative media. I don't care because in my heart and my soul, Nick Fury is a white guy with an eye patch and a cigar. I don't care what Joe Quesada says, and Iron Fist is Danny Rand. End of story. There's been other. This one I'm not thrilled with. The Punisher is going to become the leader of the Hand Ninja Clan, who have long been enemies of Daredevil and Elektra, which I'm totally on board with. They also changed his logo to make it look more like, I guess, like what a ninja might wear. Thank you to the police for ruining the Punisher logo. I hope you fascists are happy. If you're not aware, the Punisher traditionally wears a skull as his logo, and then it was made into a very bad 2004 film starring the otherwise excellent Thomas Jane. Um, and then the logo for that film, which differs slightly but significantly from the original logo, that logo has been co-opted by the police and the supporters of the police, and when I say the police, I mean the white police. So it's got hijacked by these right wing nutcases, and I feel I don't know. This is pure speculation on my well, not pure speculation. This is rather an educated guess, being a citizen of these United States. Disney was like, you know what? Let's just drop this hot potato and change the logo entirely, and so they shall. The moon blows up. I don't know what that's about. It's a Mr. Show reference. um, what was that laugh, James? I can't remember what this. Oh, the Lotus thing. Yeah, that's an X-Men thing. I don't even. I'm too bored with that particular storyline. Ooh, I didn't realize I felt so strongly about it. The Young Avengers are going to get the band back together, probably with some new people. Um, oh, and there looks like there's definitely going to be a new Thunderbolts, which I'm super stoked. I wish it weren't because apparently the Thunderbolts are being teased in the MCU and they're going to have a show or something at some point. Yeah. Give me a new Thunderbolts title so I can continue owning every issue. For all the, I think I have several like complete runs of things, but not as many as I would like. And when I complete one, boy, are you going to hear about it. Thunderbolts, Spider-Man 2099. Those are the only two that leap to mind. The Demon, The Question, and I'm talking single issues. Some trades. Ultimate Spider-Man, I have a bunch of trades, but then I have mostly single issues. Um, Exiles, first volume. Still haven't read it, but I got it. I'm into that sort of thing. So I have a full run of the Thunderbolts. It's one of my favorite comics, and it looks like Taskmaster is going to be in it, even though I felt he was a little played out. They haven't used him that much lately. Iron Man continues to be Cosmic Iron Man. It's a big reveal. I read Iron Man. Bucky is apparently going to shoot Steve Rogers, the Captain America. What do you mean, those boys? I'm not this one. I'm not sure if it's 616 continuity, but apparently Mayday Parker or some redhead. It could also be Mary Jane Watson. Again, I don't read Spider Man anymore. Puts on the costume, as does Shuri the Black Panther. At least that's my best guess. There's a there's a Black Panther here who's clearly female, and that's traditionally been Shuri, this is T'Challa's younger sister. Jack of Hearts is going to be returning. Jack of Hearts is a minor hero, largely in the Bronze Age, and he's going to be in the Reckoning War, which is Dan Slott's big event that he's doing this year. They also have Thanos with Thor's hammer. So there's like other hints, and the big reveal I'm not going to tell you because, for one thing, you probably won't care, and for another thing, it's not cool to do that. So yeah, I'm into it, even though there's that's. I mean, I feel like I can still be critical of things or still not like it, but I'm still my general demeanor is one of enthusiasm. Here are the big things that I read this past week. I read the first two phone books of Cerebus. These are very thick trade paperbacks. This both there's 25 issues a piece here, and I am now officially underway on a Cerebus read through, which I've never actually done to completion. I always talk about Dave and Cerebus and stuff lately because I read that Strange Death of Alex Raymond book a few months ago. There's a regular at the shop who's I asked him, well, I'm like, oh, are you into Cerebus? And he showed me a Cerebus tattoo, and I said, not so much. So these collections Dave has been putting out since the mid '80s, about 9 years while the book was published. After the book had been in public, after the book had been published for 9 years and was continuing, and it was like this. It wasn't really done back then. You had occasionally you had trade paperbacks, collections of certain popular storylines, and I think I want to say that publishers like Fantagraphics and certainly Dark Horse, yeah, trades were not an uncommon thing, but certainly not as prevalent as they are now, and not this size either. And back in the day, I mean, these are nice editions that I got here. Back in the day, they were just really flimsy newsprint, and I have two that I've had since high school that I will be reading soon. So the thing is, when I was a kid growing up, Cerebus was about halfway through when I got into it, and my friend Chuck, who lived in Los Angeles or West Covina, and I lived in San Diego, I borrowed them from him. I borrowed some of his. I had a big chunk, but he had everything. And I think he had doubles of a lot of stuff too. So I talked him into letting me borrow his first Cerebus phone book, I think, and his first Church and State phone book. Maybe both Church and State phone books. They had been autographed to him by Dave Sim. And I ended up having those in my possession for the next 15 years. And then Facebook finally allowed me to track him down, and I was able to return. And honestly, it felt like my heart had been torn. I treated them as though they were mine, which is to say, proudly. And they were on my shelf, and I used to be able to look at my phone, and I only had four. Because then then I was only going to buy the single issues. So I guess a couple years ago they did these newer editions, which are really nice, way nicer than the originals for sure. And this guy Greg bought them, but then he was like, "I don't need all these again." All of my Cerebus are back at my mom's house, and like I say, I don't have all of them anyway. So it seems a little silly to get all of them. But since that was the other thing, was that he gave these to us. He gave them to the shop, and along with some other stuff, just because he just wanted to get rid of it. I'm sure Warren gave him store credit or something. And then I was like so amazed at how nice these editions were that he just gave them to me. So I was like, well, all right, I guess I'm reading Cerebus. I had downloaded the entirety of the book onto my Kindle, but it's 3,000 pages. What was it? 300 times 20? 6,000 pages. And, it takes up a lot of space on the old Kindle Fire, especially because that thing is a piece of shit. But they don't cost me that much with my discount. And even though I have largely in single issues, either single issues or reprints. They did a bunch of single issue reprints, and I think that's all of my High Societies are those. But now I have the phone book, and this was my favorite one. I had forgotten. I hadn't forgotten. This has always been my favorite one. High Society is the second volume of Cerebus, where he becomes Prime Minister of Yest, and it's where he introduces so many great characters, and he really dives into the dialects of characters. And in the first volume, you have Elrod, who talks like Foghorn Leghorn, but in High Society, you have the dirty the dirty McGrew brothers, who talk like Yosemite Sam, and then you got another character whose name eludes me right now, who talks like a New York guy, and like Dave doing all this dialect stuff, and it's so much fun. I have the next two on. I started the first Church and State. The next two are both called Church and State. Church and State 1, Church and State 2, where Cerebus becomes the Pope, and where things start to get a little weird afterwards. And then I have, following that, it goes Jocka's Story and then Melmoth, and those I have here, so I can just read those, because I burned through these. They're so good. I love this comic book so much, and there's not yet a bunch of objectionable shit. So I'm really hoping I can get through the whole series, because there's a chunk of the last arc is called Latter Days. There's 2 arcs inside of that, and I am missing the first one. That's pretty good. So, but they're also really hard to get through. And about the halfway point is where there starts to be more text than you would find in your average book. Like, it almost becomes just a book for reads, oddly enough, is the name of that arc. But yeah, I love this comic book so much still. And it really takes me back to like my high school days, but a pleasant memory from those times of reading these comics when I was, how old was I when I first started reading Cerebus? 14? Yeah. 14 years old. Gosh, that seems like it was so long ago. Yeah, it was 30 years ago I started reading this comic. And 30 years from now, I will finish it. No, I think I'm going to burn through these pretty quick, because I love them. All right. Whoa. I knew this was going to be a long one, but I apologize. The sign is under the books. I'm not going to bother with it now. Bye, bye, bye.